Hey everyone, it's Sammy from Push Square, and in the build up to E3 2018 I wanted to make a sort of series of videos talking about Sony's conference and some of the things that I expect to see, some of the things I'm hoping to see, and some of the things I'm concerned about. And I wanted to kick things off today by making a video about The Last of Us Part 2, which is a game I'm very excited for, but it's also a game I do have a few concerns over. So this isn't me saying that the game's going to be rubbish or I'm worried about its development in any way or anything like that. It's just a few little niggles that I have in the back of my mind that I'm hoping E3 2018 will clear up for me. So I'm going to get into exactly what I mean in this video, but before I do, please do remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And with all that said, let's get into it. So I absolutely love The Last of Us, it's one of my favourite games and I definitely can't wait to see its successor on stage at E3 2018 next month. It's getting close now. So Neil Druckmann has confirmed at PlayStation Experience late last year that we will get our first glimpse of gameplay of The Last of Us 2 during Sony's press conference, and actually a select few people have already seen the demo behind closed doors. You know, everyone's already saying that it's incredible, of course they are, but I do have some niggling concerns about Naughty Dog's next game. Now, if you'd asked me before God of War whether I had any worries at all about The Last of Us Part 2, I'd have literally laughed in your face. Naughty Dog is on such a hot streak right now that even its worst game in recent years, and I'm talking about Uncharted 3 there, that game is practically better than all of the other blockbusters that released in the PlayStation 3 era, and that's like the worst game that they've put out recently. So like, I thought I was even done with Uncharted after the excellent Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, but The Lost Legacy ended up being one of my favourites in the series, and that just goes to show how good Naughty Dog is at the moment. But I genuinely believe that with The Last of Us Part 2, it simply has to evolve its formula, and that's particularly in the wake of God of War, which was, if you've seen my review, just a revival that blew me away. I had high expectations for it and it exceeded them in every department. There were so many things that impressed me about God of War, but the one that sticks with me now, like several weeks after I wrapped up the review and kind of finished playing it, is how much of an actual video game it is. Now, that's kind of a weird thing to say, and I hope people are going to understand what I mean, because of course it was a video game, but what God of War does particularly well, and something that I don't think Naughty Dog games in recent years do as well, is that it balances moment-to-moment interactivity with really high quality storytelling. Now, to explain what I mean just a little bit more, let me say that I think, and I've always thought, that The Last of Us is a tier above Uncharted because its actual gameplay matches its narrative better than Uncharted does. So Nathan Drake is obviously a likeable, relatable, human character, but he's also a mass murderer, and I mean, this discussion has been done to death, so I don't want to repeat it, but if you compare Uncharted to The Last of Us, the brutality in The Last of Us makes sense in that world, and it really fits Joel's character, and they kind of wrote Joel's character to kind of fit what you do in the game. And I mean, even the environmental storytelling in The Last of Us works, because you can imagine characters like Ellie and Joel scavenging for supplies, and that makes sense when you're in the game, just peeking in every cupboard and through every drawer. But the thing is that the God of War is much better at being a video game than any modern Naughty Dog title, and it does it without sacrificing the storytelling. So my point here is that The Last of Us Part 2 simply can't rest on the formula of past releases. It needs to be more interactive and better designed than any of the studio's recent games. Obviously stuff like Uncharted and even the original Last of Us, it had combat, which I love, and it had puzzles, which I liked some of them, not all of them, but these games also had moments and periods where I don't want to call them walking simulators because they're not walking simulators, but where there's not really much for you to do in terms of interacting. You're either climbing a cliff face or you're just walking through pretty environments, and God of War elevates this because there's always something going on in God of War. There's always something to interact with, there's always something to solve. A lot of this stuff is easy stuff, but it's there and it keeps you engaged, and it keeps you thinking and using the controller and learning the systems and interacting with the mechanics. Now, I'm obviously not expecting there to be treasure chests and rune puzzles in every room of The Last of Us Part 2, but what I'm saying is that positioning wooden planks, for example, which was a puzzle that was used over and over again in The Last of Us, that's simply not going to be good enough anymore. God of War has raised the stakes for moment-to-moment interactivity in these kind of games, and it did so without sacrificing any storytelling. So I'm saying like that the bar has been raised, and I really need to see Naughty Dog acknowledge that at E3 2018. I have some concerns about the storytelling in The Last of Us Part 2. There's a worry that the sequel might be a bit too violent based on the Paris Games Week trailer, but personally, like, I think the developer will ultimately find the right balance, the right amount of violence, and the game's going to be great in that department. My concern here is that after years of Naughty Dog making very similar games, yes, there have been changes, improvements and refinements, I'm worried that it's going to make another one of those. And yes, I want more The Last of Us, but in the aftermath of God of War, it's proved to me that it's possible to make a game that can be emotionally resonant and have a really deep and great storyline and great written characters, but it can also have very video game elements that keep you involved and interacting with the game world every sort of 30 seconds or so. So ultimately, my hope is that The Last of Us Part 2's E3 2018 demo is going to prove to me that Naughty Dog is already ahead of the curve on all this. Now, the developer has been consistently exceeding expectations since 2009, so there's no reason for me to doubt them or anyone else to doubt them. And let's face it, there's been an element of like one-upmanship between Sony studios for a long time now, so I'm really sure that Naughty Dog's ready to pick up the baton and blow our minds all over again. But I kinda want this E3 2018 demo to reassure me, to prove to me that Naughty Dog is thinking about the game and the moment-to-moment interactions in The Last of Us Part 2 just as much as it is the storytelling, because that's what God of War does. It has the storytelling, it has the characters, it has that great through line that keeps you pushing forward through the campaign, but it also has all these little things and toys, almost gimmicks off the beaten path that keep you thinking about the mechanics and thinking about the systems, and that elevates what Naughty Dog has been doing for me. I think God of War is a step ahead, and Naughty Dog now needs to show that it's also going to improve on God of War's formula and not necessarily previous Uncharted or The Last of Us games. I hope this makes sense. I'm not saying that I'm terrified that The Last of Us is going to be a bad game, or I'm not really worried about it, you know. I just want to see that Naughty Dog understands that it can keep the interactivity levels high, that it can introduce lots of mechanics and lots of systems while still telling a great story, because that's ultimately what God of War does, and that's what makes God of War such a memorable and such a high quality game. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. What are you expecting from The Last of Us Part 2's E3 demo? Do you think that Naughty Dog might not even really show much of the structure of the game and might focus on a big set piece or a big story cutscene perhaps? I mean, that's equally possible. It might be too early for them to show off some of the systems and stuff. We didn't really get to see a whole lot of God of War until months before it come out, really. It was like 2 months before it come out that we actually properly got to see God of War, so it might be too early for Naughty Dog to reveal this kind of stuff about The Last of Us Part 2. But I wanted to share this video, I wanted to tell you where my head's at with The Last of Us 2 and kind of just put this out there and get some feedback, see what your thoughts are. Maybe you don't think that Naughty Dog needs to change anything about the way it makes games, and you're perfectly happy with The Last of Us Part 2 being more or less more of the same with prettier graphics and a new story, and I think that's fine. I would be happy with that as well. I just think that they can do a little bit more. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I hope to do a lot more E3 stuff. Sorry I haven't been that active on YouTube lately. I've been writing a lot of God of War guides for the homepage, pushsquare.com. But anyway, yeah, that's me. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time.